Welcome aboard. Welcome to Jewish Insights for the Parsha of Sisa. Sisa, my friends, follows 2 weeks of in-depth discussion of construction of the Mishkan. Mishkan is the Tabernacle, the dwelling place of Hashem. In the desert, mind you. Well, there are many different pieces that were used in the Mishkan, of which we are going to discuss only one of them today. If you've read ahead, you know which one we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about the washing basin. The washing basin. Did you read ahead? Could have called me out. We're going to talk about the washing basin. The washing basin was, as we will discover, donated by the Jewish woman, and we will discover unique significance of the work, the what's called in Hebrew the avodah, but it doesn't translate to work so well. It translates better to the procedure, perhaps, that was done with the washing basin, and we will further discover what is the unique value of a washing basin donated by a woman. Okay, so there's a lot to be discovered in today's conversation. And so, my friends, I offer you the opportunity to turn your source notes to the page, the first page, source number 1. Source number 1, section A. We will jump straight in. We're going to read some verses from the Torah. Parshas Sisa, our Parsha, and here is the instruction from Hashem to make a washing basin. A washing basin is called a kior. Make a kior, and what you should do with it. So, let us ask, Alan, can you read for us, please, source number 1?
God spoke to Moses, saying, "Make a copper wash basin along with a copper base for it. Place it between the altar and the tent of the sanctuary and fill it with water for washing. Aaron and his sons must wash their hands and feet from it. If they are not to die, they must wash with the water of this wash basin before entering the tent of the sanctuary or approaching the altar to perform the divine service, presenting a fire offering to God."
Thank you, Alan. So we have discovered the verse in the Torah, Exodus chapter 30, verses 17 through 20, that tell us that you need to have a washing basin. It's got to be made out of copper. Where you should put it, who you will use it, and what happens if they don't use it. Okay, mind you, I am not so worried. I doubt anyone skipped this part of the service, especially knowing what I know after preparing this class. So, my friends, let's move on straight into the Rebbe's comments on this. So let's ask, Margot, can you read for us, please, the Rebbe, washing before serving?
Can do. I can't. My Gmail's down, so I can't see the document, unless you share it.
You can't see the document, so we need to share it. Let's find it. Let's see if we can find it. Okay, so we'll start with Rabbi Shmuel. Can you read, please, for us the first comment of the Rebbe? Read for us the Rebbe, and also the second one, what is beloved to God?
Purpose of the wash basin is to purify the priest before he enters the tabernacle, to offer a sacrifice or prostrate himself in worship before God. Entering the tabernacle without an express purpose is forbidden. Before entering, he would first wash his hands and feet. The Torah states, "Make a copper wash basin along with a copper base for it." The wash basin was not made of gold or silver, but of copper, the cheapest of metals. Which copper was used for the wash basin? The mirrors of the women who set up the legions. As our sages explain, the Jewish women even donated their mirrors, which were made of shining copper. Moses rejected them at first, seeing them as representing temptation. But God told him to accept them because it was those mirrors that helped bring the next generation of the Jewish people into existence.
Fantastic. Thank you, Reb Shmuel. So, the Rebbe tells us that the beginning service of walking into the Mishkan and effectively walking into the Basin Hamikdash is going to be to use the washing basin. You have to wash something. And the big question is, what was the washing basin made out of? Copper. Where did the Jewish people get copper from? And later on we'll find out why it had to be the Jewish woman to use it. As a fascinating piece of history, I have here a piece of research from something. This isn't research. This is donated by the committee of something. I'm going to share it now. It's sharing the screen. Do you see here? Adar I, Egypt, 6th dynasty, Old Kingdom. This. And these are mirrors. It says, mirrors such as this were found in the tombs of eminent Egyptians. There you go. How interesting is that? Why is this interesting? Because in a moment we're going to read a pasuk and then a Rashi, and the Rashi tells us where these mirrors made history. So let's ask Margot, can you read for us please source number 2, all 3 paragraphs? Maybe.
Oh, it's still loading, so skip
Still
me, please.
loading. Okay, talk about DSL right there. Okay. Jerry, do you have the textbook in front of you?
Yes.
Okay, so your turn. Read source 2 with the next Rashi 2 paragraphs.
Okay. Wash basin of copper and its base of copper from the mirrors of the women who had set up the legions who congregated at the entrance of the tent of the sanctuary. From the mirrors of the women who had set up the legions, Israelite women owned mirrors which they would look into. They adorned themselves. Even these mirrors they did not hold back from bringing as a contribution towards the tabernacle, but Moses rejected them because they were made for temptation. God said to him, accept them, for these are more precious to me than anything, because through them women set up many legions. Through the children they gave birth to in Egypt. When their husbands were weary from backbreaking labor, the women would go and bring them food and drink and give them to eat. Then they would take the mirrors, and each one would see herself with her husband in the mirror. And she would seduce him with words saying, I am more beautiful than you. And in this way, they aroused their husband's desire, and he would capitulate with them. Conceiving and giving birth there, as it is said, under the apple tree I aroused you. This is the meaning of the mirrors of those who set up legions.
Look at that. Thank you, Jerry. Get a load of this. What did they use in the Mishkan for the initial introduction service? They used the mirrors that the wives of the Jewish slaves in Egypt used to seduce, call it, I don't know if that's the right English word, their spouses, their husbands, to be together and have more children. Fantastic. There's multiple lessons involved in here. Number one, it gives you insight into the great value of establishing a next Jewish generation. That the elements that were used in that effort eventually became vital parts of the temple. Important lesson number one. Important lesson number two is, in some communities, relations between husband and wife is considered a necessary evil. It's considered a dirty thing, it's a not appropriate thing. And in Judaism, it's considered a holy thing. In Judaism, this is one of the holiest moments that a person can experience, and one of the holiest achievements and miraculous achievements that a person can achieve. So much so, in comparison, in some communities, the chief, I don't know what, needs to be celibate. And in Judaism, the Kohen Gadol, the chief priest, must be married. This stresses, it shows really the unique value and importance that we give to this specific mitzvah. We're not going to spend too much time on this mitzvah. However, I did want to point that out, that here you can see how we took something that someone might have shied away from and said, oh, that's not clean. In fact, Moses himself did that, shied away from it. And we use it for something super, super holy. And that, my friends, is an introduction to our class tonight, in which we will discuss this very topic. So let's open up to section B. And now, Margot, tell us when it's loaded, okay? You'll let me know. And now, section B, you have it. Ooh.
Section B, the cleanser.
Section B, the
reading
cleanser.
that,
Yes, give us 1, 2, 3 paragraphs.
The rabbi within every person. Therein lies a lesson for every single person. Destruction of the temple only occurred with regard to the physical temple. However, there is a temple within the heart of every single Jew. As God said, I will dwell in their midst, i.e., within every person. The existence of that temple is dependent on the person himself. If one invests the necessary effort, his temple will remain standing. Now, this temple needs to be built from a variety of physical materials, just as the physical tabernacle was built from gold, silver, copper, and so on. In other words, the goal is to make the material world into a dwelling place for God, as we've often explained at length. That is the purpose of the Torah, to make the world a holy place, a holy temple.
Okay, thank you, Margot. So here we go. We as we've read, we've discussed this topic many times over. But the reason we discuss it so many times is because it is a vital topic in Hasidic and definitely Chabad theology. I do want to draw your attention to the last words of this middle paragraph, which say the existence of that temple is dependent on the person himself. Give that special attention, because as much as Judaism and Jewish life is centered around community, Jewish life requires individual participation. It's a phenomena that sometimes may get lost amidst, the frenzy of going to synagogue on Friday night and forgetting that Judaism has so much more to it. Okay, that's a comment. But in the meanwhile, we've studied so much in the past sections that after giving of the Torah at Mount Sinai, God commands Moses, make a tabernacle. And what's the purpose of a tabernacle? So that the Shekhinah, the presence of Hashem, should reside in the tabernacle, which from here on is called a Mishkan, M-I-S-H-K-A-N, Mishkan. And the purpose of the Mishkan, to be a dwelling place, a container for godliness, and a place where we, as individuals, as Jewish people, are able to connect with godliness. So, the first part of this, of building the Mishkan, is that the Jewish people needed to pool together their resources, gold, silver, and copper, to fund the construction. And they had to use their gold and silver and their metals for a godly purpose. After the Mishkan is ready, now the priests from the family of Aaron HaKohen are able to start performing all the services. And there are many services. There's the sacrifices on the central altar, and there are frankincense on the golden altar, the lighting of the menorah, and the baking of the showbread. It's a lot of stuff. And if we were talking about it all day, who knows, we might get distracted and never finish the curriculum. The main thing is that with all of these services, it's an opportunity, it's a way for us to bring Hashem into our reality, into the world. So now, you are asking an immediate question. I want a Mishkan. I want to have a place where Hashem dwells, where I can experience Hashemliness, where I can make a dwelling place for Hashem. Did anyone ask that question? Anyone? Uh-oh. Yikes. Okay, you guys, come on. Ask it. It's a good question. You should ask it. Okay, so the big question that now that I asked that question, you should be saying is, nowadays, we don't have a Mishkan, we don't have a Beis HaMikdash. How do I have a Mishkan of my own? How do I bring godliness into the world on my own as an individual? And especially that many of us live in towns where there isn't so much Jewish life. Or we live in a town with a lot of Jewish life, but people don't want to gather twice a month or more. So what are we going to do now? It's a big question. So here comes the answer. When the Torah tells us about Hashem's command for a sanctuary, for a Mishkan, the words are, and I will dwell among them. V'shochanti b'soicham. Ask me later, I'll tell you where it is. So the rabbis learn off that verse, they say that God really wants a sanctuary inside every Jew, which is a place where Hashem can call home. So here's the big question that now you should be asking maybe, how do you get Hashem, unlimited, omnipotent, to dwell in a physical existence? Hashem is so big, and I am so physical. How can I get Hashem to be in here? Okay, Margot, do you have that question? No, Margot doesn't care about that question. I don't know.
No, I don't really have a lot of questions right now.
You're not blown away. That question isn't like meaningful. It's not like
I mean, I get the question, but like it doesn't worry you.
I
don't think about it that much.
Oy vey. Okay, Reb Shmuel is asking a bigger question. I can see it.
Correct me if I'm wrong. My understanding is that prior to the construction of the temple, private altars were permitted for individuals, but that once the temple itself was constructed, that was no longer permitted, and even after destruction, that prohibition still obtains. I assume that's correct. So there was a time prior to the temple, right, when a private altars could be used for sacrifice. Yeah.
That is correct. There is a minor historical discrepancy which we need to do research on, which is that there was a period between the Mishkan and the first temple where private temples called Bamos, B-A-M-O-S, Base Mem Vav Tov, were not allowed. So it was allowed, not allowed, allowed, and never again.
Yeah.
Okay, that you have to check the timeline, printed in somewhere. It's Googleable. Okay, I rely on you to figure it out. If you don't, call me. Okay, so here's the big question that we're all asking. How can Hashem rest in the physical item? How can he rest in the physical? So, it's possible if we take something physical and make it a sanctuary for Hashem. How do you do that? You use it for something that Hashem asked me to do. Hashem asked us to do Torah and mitzvahs. So if I take something physical and I use it for a mitzvah, I'm going to bring Hashemliness into it. In the Mishkan, they used 15 different materials. Each of those materials, as soon as they became part of the Mishkan, they become super holy. We'd all agree that you wouldn't want to deface an item in the Mishkan. Why? Because it's holy. What does it mean it's holy? It's holy. Why is it holy? That's today's conversation. So we also are able to make things holy. How do you do it? It's not that we need to change the makeup of the item. Sometimes you want to change something. You want to take a piece of wood and you want to change it into a chair. So you have to saw and cut and fix and hammer and whatever until it becomes a chair or a table. It's not the same when you want to make something holy. For example, let's talk about dinner versus Shabbos. Regular dinner versus Shabbos dinner. On a regular day of the week, you eat. A regular person can eat dinner in order to satiate their hunger. The guy's hungry, comes home from a long day in the field, and he wants to eat. The other way to look at it is Friday night, it's Shabbos, it's a holy day, and you make extra special food, and you eat it with the intention of celebrating Shabbos. You eat it with the intention of performing a mitzvah. Now the food that you've eaten is not the same food as yesterday when I was hungry. Now this food, even though I'm hungry, but this time I'm thinking about Shabbos, now this food is mitzvah food. It's Shabbos food. It's holy. It became holy. And this, in example, is our job on earth. This is what Hashem wants from us. We need to use the spiritual, we need to use the physical, the things that Hashem has given us, and do mitzvahs with it, and lift it up, and make it holy. Somewhere in the end of the book of Tanya, the Alter Rebbe tells that if a person gives tzedakah, they are influencing not just the money with which they're doing a mitzvah, they're also making holy the effort and energy invested in earning that money. And it gets better. How did you earn the money? You had to eat, and you had to eat to have energy to go to work. To everything that went into that mitzvah to get that dollar is now affected and uplifted because of the mitzvahs that you do with it. It's a fantastic idea, it's a redeeming idea, and it gives purpose to a lot of the things that we do and engage in. So now, my friends, after that digression, we're at the top of page 7, and we have a new question to deal with. This is a bigger question. Because the question of how to, whatever, there's an answer, it's a simple, straight answer, and fine. But now there's a bigger question, which is, if I engage in the world, maybe I will get dirty. Maybe I will get stuck in worldliness and forget to elevate it. You can come to dinner on a Sunday afternoon and say, I'm hungry, and forget that you're eating to do a mitzvah. You come and you eat and you forget that it's for a mitzvah because it's the mundane is actually quite enjoyable. So what do we tell the person who says, hey, if I engage in worldly things, I will get distracted, and I will forget, and I will not pay attention. And this is where we're going right now. So let's ask Alan, can you read for us, please? How do we purify?
How do we purify? The following question arises. When we are involved with the mundane, it is unlikely that we will remain aloof and unaffected. By human nature, when you fight with a dirty person, you become soiled yourself. In that state, how can we enter the holy temple? The Mishnah states that if one has mud on his feet, he is forbidden even from entering the temple mount. The resolution is to wash oneself before entering the temple.
Excellent. So the question is, what if I get dirty? The answer is, wash yourself. Wash yourself before you go into the temple. Before the Kohen, before the priest begins his service in the Mishkan, his first job is he must wash his hands and feet. The Kohen is not allowed to start his service without doing that. The same thing in our personal temples, in our own heart, in our own service of Hashem. Before we start with the service of connecting the mundane world to Hashem, we have to wash our hands and feet, and we're going to figure out what it is in spiritual terms to wash our hands and feet. We'll get there in a moment. But now, we just introduced two words that you're wondering about. We said hands and feet. So why hands and feet? Why is it that it's dafka the hands and feet that you have to wash and nothing else? That's the next paragraph. Let's ask Reb Shmuel, can you read please? What do we wash?
What are we supposed to wash? We wash the parts of our bodies that are most heavily involved in mundane affairs, our hands and feet. The feet transport the person into the world. The person naturally finds himself in the holy temple, in a place of Torah study and prayer, and it is his feet which lead him into the world. It is his feet which quite literally stand directly on the ground. The hands are the middlemen between the individual and the world, through which you take from the world and through which you contribute to it.
Thank you very much, Reb Shmuel. So now, we're going to do a little digression and come back to the conversation. A little digression, not a big one. With your available knowledge of the laws of Shabbos, what is the most easy to break law of Shabbos? Ready, set, go. Come on, someone.
Turning on a light.
Okay, that's super easy. I wasn't going... Yes, that's true too. I should have thought about that. I guess maybe my question isn't what's the most easy. I live in a different world. I didn't even think of turning on a light. Oh my gosh. Gee whiz. Okay, I'll listen. Okay, Alan, give us a guess.
Lighting a fire.
Okay, that's turning on a light. It's the same thing. Come on. All right.
Well,
effectively, I mean to say, not that it's literally the same thing, but it traces back to the same space. Okay. I will Margaret, would you like a guess?
Saying a bad word?
Saying a bad word. Okay, yeah, you got it. You're not that is true. You're not allowed to talk mundane speech on Shabbos. So yes, you shouldn't curse any day of the week, but on Shabbos you're not meant to talk mundane speech, which, by the way, don't tell this to your university students, but they shouldn't be reading secular texts on Shabbos either. You should reserve Shabbos for Torah study. Okay, don't get so overwhelmed. Please, take it easy, guys. Now, the thing that I was thinking about, I don't know if Jerry's still there, so we want to ask him, but I was thinking, you are there? Jerry, yeah. What's the easiest one to break on Shabbos?
Carrying in a public domain.
Boom! Did you read ahead?
No.
Okay, well, I did.
Oh.
I wasn't going to say it.
Okay, Jerry, you got it. Yes, the one I would think one of the easiest ones to violate is actually carrying in a public domain. If you get too halachic in this, if you get too deep in it, you'll discover that public domains are hard to find. But we're not talking about that right now. What we are talking about is that carrying outdoors, carrying from my house onto the street, is a violation of a law that we cannot carry from one domain to another domain on Shabbos. Okay, well, source number 3 is a Mishnah from Shabbos. The very first Mishnah about Shabbos is the acts of carrying out from a public domain into a private domain which are prohibited on Shabbos. For example, and the Mishnah tells us 2 ways you could do it. One way is that the poor person stands outside and the homeowner stands inside. The other way is that the poor person is standing... there's many ways to... There's 4 ways to do it that are based in 2 ways. Okay, fine. The poor person extended his hand inside and placed an object into the hand of the homeowner. The homeowner extended his hand outside and placed an object into the hand of the poor person. So the assumption here is that why would you transfer product ever to help a poor person? To help someone. You have better, you have more, you give to the next guy. That's a nice message. So these are the examples of how you could violate the commandment of not carrying on Shabbos, is if there is a poor person who comes to your house and he says, please help me, give me a loaf of bread, I'm hungry. So, what are you going to tell him? Please, of course. You take a piece of bread and you give him, and you give. Or he puts his hand into the door and receives what you're giving to him, and then he takes it out himself. Okay? Other way around. Oh no, we just said 2 ways. The poor man is standing outside, the homeowner is standing inside. Either the poor man puts his hand inside the house and receives, or the homeowner extends his hand outside and places. Okay? There's a lot of secret halachic jargon included in that Mishnah, and when you get to the beginning of Tractate Shabbos, you will discover so much depth in there. But that's not the point right now. The point really is what we're going to discover here in the next piece, the next piece is at the bottom of page. Where is it?
8.
Here, it's at the bottom of page 8. There you go. Thank you. So now the Rebbe is going to give us a little insight on this Mishnah. And the insight that the Rebbe drops on us on this Mishnah is going to lead us back to the conversation we started with. So, Margot. Busy. Margot's busy. You see?
You keep picking on me.
How many? I'm sorry, too many times? I'll stop. Please, take it away. Page 8.
Rabbi?
Yes.
The Rabbi, how do we purify?
Exactly.
Okay, there is a well-known Hasidic interpretation to the Mishnah regarding the poor man standing outside and the homeowner standing inside. And the poor man outside represents the person who was sent to fulfill his mission in the physical world. The homeowner extends his hand to the outside, expressing his love for his people, and the poor man extends his hand to the inside with the intention of moving something from the world into the godly domain.
Okay, I'm going to interrupt you right there. Let's ask the table. If we were to say that there is Hashem and the people, who are we going to call the homeowner and who are we going to call the poor person? Okay, that's very brave of you to participate. It's going to be Hashem is going to be the homeowner, because this is his world. He made it. And the poor person is us, the humans, the Jews, the people. And in the Mishnah, we've discovered two ways of distribution, of connection between Hashem and the person. One way is that the poor person, me, takes an item. I put my hand into the private domain. I take a physical item and I elevate it to holiness. I lift it up by doing a mitzvah with it. Okay, what's the other way to do it? That the homeowner takes something, Hashem takes something, and gives it, and the homeowner puts it into the public domain. This is the power given from on high to a person who is still outside to elevate him to holiness. Two ways to swing this. I'm going to say it outside. One way to do it is that I take something and do a mitzvah with it. I'm the poor man, I take something from Hashem's property and I do a mitzvah with it. The other option is that Hashem sends me a blast of inspiration, and now I'm motivated to do something holy. That's the homeowner extending his hand into the public domain and giving. Do we follow that one? Awesome. Alan, you with me? Excellent. So now, Margot, please continue with the last paragraph of that section.
Those portions of the body which come into contact with the physical world, the legs, which lead a person into the world, and the hands through which a person interacts with the world, need to be cleansed.
So previously, thank you, Margot, previously we've been wondering, why do we need to only wash our hands and our feet? Why don't we wash everything else? By the way, every Kohen, before he served in the Mishkan and in the temple, he had to go to mikvah. Different topic, different conversation. But in this case, the very least over here, he washes his hands at the basin. Why does he have to wash only his hands and feet? Because the hands and the feet, are the items, are our tools with which we interact with the world. As we'll see, I think we'll see as you know, right, you walk on the ground, on your feet, right? Our connection to the ground is our feet. And our engagement is with our hands. With my hands, right? So, in order to engage with the Hashemliness, we're going to wash our hands and feet, because those are the areas with which, these are the functions, the tools with which we engage with mundane. We want to clean off mundane and move into holiness. Brings us to section C. Any questions yet? No. Okay, Reb Shmuel, please give us, wash out your world.
How does one go about this cleansing? According to Jewish law, this cleansing entails pouring water on one's hands and feet. The physical hands and feet remain in place while the dust and dirt upon them are washed away when enough water is used. As reflected in our lives, Maimonides writes that a person should seek to immerse himself in the pure waters of wisdom, in the study of godliness, which is taught in Hasidism. By nature, such water has the power to wash one's hands and feet, the elements of the body which interact with the world, and to wash away one's worldly perspective, strengthening the godly soul, which is a part of God above. When the hands and feet become clean, a person can fulfill his role in the world, to make everything in this world, whether gold, silver, or copper, into a dwelling place for God. And this is the lesson. You don't need to be a brilliant intellectual. You don't need something made of gold or silver. It could be from a cheap metal like copper, as long as the donation is, in the words of the verse, a donation of the heart. When the effort comes from within a pure Jewish heart, it has the power to wash off all the dirt and mud that collected on his hands and feet.
Thank you very much, Reb Shmuel. So here you go. A Jew's service in this world, our job is to make from gold and silver a temple. Use your personal gold and silver and make it into a temple. The problem is that when I get involved in gold and silver, I get distracted. So, since as discussed, one of the fundamental differences between holiness and the opposite lies in intention, in our kavanah, it's really easy to lose kavanah. It's really easy to forget the intention that we're meant to be focusing here with. When the person is trying to elevate and trying to make something holy and trying to get holy, so his involvement, he has to get involved in the world. He has to use items. You can't do it without the world. He needs the art world. But as he gets more stuck in it, he can get distracted. Even someone who has a solid, good Jewish education, private school, all the way up to 8th grade, and paid hundreds of thousands of dollars in school fees, even that wonderful, lovely darling, and he knows what's right, he knows what to do, he's gonna get dirty. We all get a little dirty throughout our lifetime. 120 years on earth, things happen, stuff happens. We get used to living in the world, in a deceitful world, in a world where in order to make an extra buck you might have to cheat. In a world where people who aren't honest often get more respect than the honest ones. And it seems necessary, in order to make it, to make it, we need to not be so good. How do we ensure that this will not happen? This is the method discussing today. We got to wash our hands and feet. What does it mean? It means that we need to immerse ourselves in the study of Hasidus. Why? Hasidus is teaching us to think, to focus on the true purpose of our lives, on the true purpose of the whole entire world. And in effect, when you spend a lot of time thinking about the true purpose, you think about the internal ways of Hashem, it elevates you as an individual. It helps you, it straightens me out. It reminds me what I should be focused on. Then, when a person who learns Hasidus goes out and engages with the world, instead of seeing the world as a world for zich allein, for it itself, for the purpose of its own grandeur and becoming wealthier and mightier. We see the world as an opportunity to serve Hashem and to make it holy. And this is the lesson of the mirror. This is the lesson of the mirror. The mirror is made out of which metal? Copper. Is copper an expensive metal? It used to be. It's definitely not as expensive as gold and silver, or platinum. Platinum is an expensive metal, they say. That's why it's high on the levels. So, the lesson of the mirror is, take this cheap metal, a cheap metal, but give it from your heart. It's a play on the word in the pasuk. The verses referring to the donations given in the temple, in the Mishkan, says there's this item, this item, this item, this metal, this metal, this metal, and anything that a person donates from their heart. When you take a cheaper metal, but you donate it from your heart, when you take a lesser value thing, but you give it your pure Jewish heart, it can wash off any dirt and mud that's being collected. Sometimes people think, oh, I can't serve Hashem, I'm not smart enough. Sometimes they say, oh, I can't be a complete and proper and perfect Jew because I haven't studied all of the texts. What's the issue? The issue from our text today, the issue from our text is, we're not asking you to be the perfect brain, the smartest guy, to know everything. No. We're asking, give it from your heart. Do it with your entire involvement. That is the ultimate cleansing process. Hasidism does talk about intense philosophical understandings of God's ways, but its true message is God and the true existence. And internalizing the true message of Hasidus, that's what helps me refocus. And now we can't end without a compliment to our better others, and Margot's here with us. So, Alan, will you please read for us who is doing it right?
Torah tells us something novel, that everyone knew that this vessel was made with material donated by the Jewish women. After a man spends numerous hours engaged in worldly affairs, it's more difficult for him to discern what could become godly and what he should avoid. A woman, being the daughter of Sarah, Rebecca, Rachel, and Leah, has the power, through the power of her faith, which is stronger in women than in men, to discern which elements are worldly and must therefore be cleansed, and which elements are eligible to be transformed and made into a holy sanctuary for God. Should I keep going?
Please do.
The donation of the women might have been only copper, the cheapest metal, but it was given with love. It was shiny and beautiful and polished to the extent that it reflects back the image of a human being. It is something which, with regards to men, represents unholiness and temptation, but to women, with their pure faith in God, it was something that gave them the power to establish new generations of Jewish people.
Thank you, Alan. Have you ever noticed that women typically are more spiritual than men are? This is one of the only Torah classes I have ever attended where we have less female engagement than men. Usually it's more. Why so? Women have been blessed by Hashem to have an extra level of faith, an extra level of spirituality, just built into their DNA, built into their systems. And an interesting thing, if you ever want to judge yourself, if you ever want to judge, am I doing this with the proper level of devotion? Am I really focused on what Hashem wants? Am I doing it for the right reasons? If you ever want to ask that question to yourself, ask a woman in your life to discern. Tell them this is what I do, and say, hey, am I doing this for the real reason? Am I doing this for my own pocket, stomach ache, whatever it is? Hopefully, if you chose a good woman, they will have insight for you. That's my guess. The message of this lesson. The mirror of the mirror used by the woman to perform a fantastic mitzvah of creating the next generation of Jewish people is davka, specifically what we use to refocus our engagement with Hashemliness and remind ourselves of where we're going. When the Kohen enters into the Mishkan, the first thing he does is he washes his hands and his feet. From where? From the wash basin. Because the wash basin was dedicated by the women who have such strong level of faith. They gave their prized possessions, mirrors. You ever met a woman without a mirror? They gave it away. They gave it away to the temple so that we can build this basin in order, the message that we can refocus ourselves towards the service of Hashem. And when you catch yourself in the middle of breakfast and you're like, oh, am I eating because I want to do this for Hashem, because I want to do a mitzvah now? Am I eating because I'm hungry and I want more whipped cream? Now is the time to refocus. Just refocus. It's all about the intention. Am I eating for Hashem? Am I eating for myself? If I'm eating for Hashem, keep on going. If I'm eating for myself, refocus. Try wash your hands. How do you wash your hands? You take a bit of the Chassidus that you know. You take a bit of the godly information that you got stored in your cranium, and you think it through. And you remind yourself of something, and you refocus on Hashem. And then, when you're refocused on Hashem, your mitzvah has so much more value. Forget the mitzvah. The engagement with the physical has more value. It becomes part of Hashem's society, call it. Another interesting lesson, that washing the hands and feet has to happen daily. Why does it have to happen daily? It's not enough to wash your hands once in your life. No. We must at the kior, at the wash basin, wash your hands every day. Why? We must refocus ourselves every day. A person who is engaged like we are, like all of us, we're engaged in the world. It's easy to forget. We must make an effort to remind ourselves every day. The flip side, women are more spiritual. Men have to pray 3 times a day because otherwise we get distracted. We forget about being Jewish. We forget about doing what Hashem wants. The flip side, women only have to pray once a day because they're more spiritual. They're already remembering Hashem all day. In fact, if you go out there, and I can tell you this from my own research, speak to men, how often do you think about God? Oh, whatever. Speak to women, how often do you think about God? I speak to God every single day. I have conversations with. Why? Women are more spiritual. They're always thinking about Hashem. Me, men, I'm blessed to be distracted. And the blessing, my friends, is the blessing of tonight is that we can all take to heart the kior, the wash basin. Remind ourselves every day by washing our hands. Remind ourselves by refocusing in our own minds to think about Hashem and to wash off the mundanities, and re-engage in the spiritual. Shabbat Shalom.